Hey guys, today I'm going to be filming a Q&A video answering some of the questions that you asked me on Instagram, and while I answer your questions, I'm going to be painting my crash pad just to make it a little bit more interesting. So hopefully for every question I get, I'll be able to do like a little doodle for you or something. I also grouped these questions into bouldering questions, which I'll answer first. Then there's some biology related questions because, as some of you know, I work in the field. And then there's some like miscellaneous personal questions at the very end. So timestamps in the description below. So I got a couple questions asking me about my favorite type of climbing, favorite and least favorite type of climbing / holds. And so I will say this, I do like climbs where maybe a little bit more flexibility is necessary. I really appreciate climbs where you have to think a little bit. Clearly I'm not an artist. My favorite type of climbing hold, I would be lying to you if I didn't say jug. They just feel great. Least favorite type of climbing hold, I would say sloper, because there's some times where you're like grabbing onto a sloper and your wrist kind of like clicks a little bit. Really don't like that feeling. Next, how tall are you? I am 5'7". I do not know what that is in the metric system. I will put the conversion down below. My ape index, my wingspan is 1 inch longer than I am tall. So nothing too crazy. Oh, I forgot to draw you something. Hold on. You get a little apple. I got some questions regarding sport climbing, such as, would you ever try sport climbing and have you ever tried sport climbing? Yes, I would try sport climbing, and no, I have never sport climbed before, but it's something I would be interested in doing in the future. I've only top roped, not sport climbed. When did you start bouldering and why? I started bouldering regularly in May of 2017, and I started bouldering to impress someone. But now I boulder just because it's fun. I don't think I can keep up with the one doodle, one question. I just get way too excited. If you could boulder outdoors anywhere in the world, where would it be? I would love to go to Fontainebleau. All the French are screaming right now. I've never bouldered outdoors anywhere outside of California and Nevada. More realistically, probably Yosemite, Palm Springs are places I haven't bouldered before that would be really cool to check out. The best places I've been to climb. Favorite place that I've been bouldering, definitely Bishop, California. That's all I have to say about that. Favorite exercise besides climbing? That gets a little wave because I was a competitive swimmer before I ever started climbing. So I'd like to think I was pretty good, but I did stop in college, so maybe I wasn't that good after all. How much does climbing tone your arms / legs / butt? Yes, when you climb, you are going to be using your muscles. I would say the most noticeable difference in tonage before and after would be in my arms and my back. I haven't really seen anything in my butt or my legs. Best pants / leggings for climbing. I have never climbed in actual like climbing pants. I do have a pair of leggings from So Ill, but here's the thing. If you're climbing in leggings, eventually they're gonna rip. I would say the best pants / leggings for climbing, go cheaper, I guess, because if they're gonna rip anyway. I have not yet tried actual climbing pants, but that is one of my goals for this year. So once I do find a pair, I'll review them. I'm getting sweaty painting these, so I've decided going forward that we're going to do a kind of time-lapse situation where I'll just answer all of your questions and you can see my process somewhere over Do you take pre-workout or protein powder? I've never taken pre-workout powder because I'm pretty sensitive to caffeine. I have taken protein powder, but I don't really drink protein powder shakes anywhere outside of maybe like a breakfast. How to find people to climb with you? This is a really good question. Bouldering is great because it's one of those really social sports where you can just go up to anybody and start a conversation. I think the easiest way to start a conversation with somebody is to talk about the climbing, obviously. Like for example, if you go up to somebody who's trying a problem that you think you could hop on as well, you could ask them if you can try it, ask them what beta's working, start talking about the climbing, and then gradually work in your life story, all of that other fun stuff. Dynamic or static? I think the sentimental answer would be dynos, but I would have to say I try to do everything static before I go for the dyno. I think my default is just to try to do everything as slowly and as controlled as you can before you attempt to go for a powerful, burly dyno. So I'd have to say static for that one. Any tips for climbing outdoors? I released an entire video on this. I will link it in the bio below. If I had to condense it into one thing, it would be humble. The first time that you climb outdoors, you're not going to be used to the feel of the rock. The gradings are probably going to be a little bit harder than you're used to. So just try and get on as many low-grade climbs as possible. Just make it your own. Make the trip as worthwhile as possible. Even make up climbs. Scramble and climb up the down climb just to get a feel for the rock and get used to the movement that outdoor bouldering is going to force you into. What are your best arm exercises for climbing besides climbing itself? I don't do a lot of training outside of climbing itself. When I do a little bit of strength training, the arm exercises I gravitate towards are ones where you're pulling down, so like pull-ups, and also eyes, Ys, and Ts. So for this exercise, you would be going on like that hyperextension machine or maybe with TRX bands, and you would take like 2 weights and go with I, Y, and T. So I guess that helps. Other important things besides your arms that you should focus on are your back muscles, your obliques, any muscle that you can use to connect everything together. Do you do any flexibility training? I do not. I'm quite inflexible. It is a struggle for me to touch my toes right now. I'm lucky enough that most of the climbs that I've done, I've not been limited by my flexibility. What's your favorite music to listen to while climbing? My gym blasts music really loud, so even if I'm wearing headphones, I can't really hear anything, but if I were to listen to music while climbing, I would listen to music that's kind of like this. So I guess I'll like make a playlist and link it in the bio below. I just like making playlists. So what is advice you would give beginners who want to learn how to climb? I'm embarrassed to go to the gym and climb because I'm a noob, or tips on starting to boulder. So I also released a video on my 5 tips for starting out bouldering, so I would definitely check that out. If I were to condense it into a little bit of advice here, I would say that walking into the gym for the first time might be a really intimidating experience. You go in, you fill out your safety waiver, you get your rental shoes, and you walk in and you see people doing all of these crazy things. But what I'll say is it is your right to be in the gym as much as it is theirs, so don't be afraid to climb in front of other people who might be stronger, because you deserve to have as much time on the wall as anyone else, and just don't be scared. Because personally, as someone who has a membership to a gym, I see people in rental shoes all the time. Like every single time I go into the gym pretty much, I see people who are just starting out or maybe even going to the gym for the first time. I don't really pay attention to them. And so just know that if you are going in and you're scared that people are judging you or thinking that you're weak, chances are people are going to look at you once and then just move on to whatever they're climbing, because that's what people are focused on when they're at the gym. So don't be intimidated, climb on and enjoy, because it's a lot of fun. I'm on V3 and I'm really struggling to find the right route, especially because I'm a small person. So is there anything you can help me with on that? To give you specific beta, I would need to know exactly what type of climb you're climbing, but I will say for short people, as a kind of shorter person myself, in the realm of climbing at least, it's all about getting creative with your beta. Usually when route setters are setting a route, they'll have an idea of the type of movement that they're intending the climbers to take, but if you're smaller, you might have to deviate a little bit from what the route setter is expecting. So what that might mean is using a foothold as an intermediate, or maybe climbing a little bit more dynamically, because you're going to have to reach for things that are a little bit farther that other taller people can do statically. I find that I often say, oh, I'm too short to climb something, as an excuse. In reality, there's so many pro climbers that are actually smaller and shorter than you think, and I'll list some of them over here. And despite them being shorter, they were still able to rise through the ranks and become professional climbers. So being short, while it is sometimes an excuse that gets thrown around, isn't really one that should be used too often. It is possible to climb as a short person, and I wish you all the best in finding all the cool, creative beta that tall people can only dream of doing. So, best of luck. How do you get over the fear of difficult moves when high on a wall? This is more a question that I'll answer in a separate video. I find that when I am about to do a difficult move, sometimes I think it's advantageous to have tunnel vision where I'm just focused on me and the next move. But that actually can be kind of detrimental, because if you do have tunnel vision and you miss whatever hold you're going for and you don't hit the move, suddenly you're not as aware of your environment, of your body as you were if you didn't have the tunnel vision. And so you might be taking an uncontrolled fall. Be aware of your body, your environment, your body position, how you'll rotate when you fall, and good luck getting those high moves. Have you ever been injured, and do you find it hard to limit yourself when you're climbing? I have been fortunate enough to have never been injured while climbing, and I've never had any climbing related injuries. I'm surrounded by people who push themselves really hard and as such get injured like every year. Because of that, I try not to push myself to the point where I'm going to get an injury, so I don't like to overcrimp things, I don't like to overexert my hands and my fingers, and I don't climb for long enough where I feel like I'm super injury prone. I think that's really important, being in tune with your body and understanding yourself well enough to be able to stop yourself from something that might be harmful. Those are all the climbing questions, so let's move on to the biology round. What type of biology are you most interested in, and what is your job right now? I'm most interested in neuroscience, and I am currently a neuroscience lab technician. So the job, I kind of am behaving like a graduate student, so I'm like carrying out experiments and stuff, but there is no doctorate or degree at the end of the road here. So I could technically have this job for the rest of my life, but I don't really want to. Eventually I do want to go into some neuroscience related field. Did you do psychology as part of your neuroscience degree? I did. I took Psych 100, but that was the only psych class that I ever took. So that was just a very intro level psych course, and I kind of wish that I had integrated more upper division psychology classes or psych electives into my curriculum. I was much more focused on molecular mechanisms, which is kind of like the other end of the spectrum as far as neuroscience goes. It's like the tiniest unit that you can go to, the neuron itself, the synapse itself. That's what I was focused on. And so studying psychology didn't really make sense with what I wanted to do with my degree. Although I am really interested in psychology and would have liked to be more exposed to it. How do you stay creative in a biology lab? What helps me a lot is just having an advisor or a boss who is really receptive to questions and exploration. That's one of the reasons why I really like my job, is because I'm allowed to kind of play around and design experiments. And what I found personally to be helpful was actually cultivating an environment, a lab environment that fosters my creativity. So specifically what this meant for me is I just bought every single colored Sharpie that I could, so that I surrounded myself with a lot of colors. I decorated my lab space to kind of match my personality, and so that kind of got my creative juices flowing a little bit more, and it made me feel more at home and comfortable in my lab. So what is your favorite gram-negative bacteria? I don't do a lot of bacteria work. I don't do a lot of DNA work, but I know enough about gram-negative bacteria that I will say E. coli. That's kind of my limited scope of bacteria knowledge, so this one is really sweet. I know you're a biologist, but will you consider being a YouTuber full-time when you blow up? That is really sweet of you. I will say that as of right now, being a scientist seems a little bit more secure than being a YouTuber. I don't know that there are enough people in the bouldering niche where I'll be able to sustain myself on YouTube alone. I think the people who are making a living on bouldering full-time are professionals, and I'm clearly not a professional, and I don't know whether or not that's ever in the horizon for me. Obviously, I love being creative, and I would love to be creative full-time and be paid for being creative. As of right now, I think that the creativity that I'm going to be paid for is limited to science. How'd you get your biology job? So I currently work in a lab that I volunteered in as an undergrad. So I was working in this lab for 3 years before I asked my advisor whether or not she would hire me during my gap year. And since I had a really good relationship with my boss, she agreed. And so she hired me basically right out of undergrad, and I've been working in her lab ever since. Miscellaneous. How are you doing today? I'm doing good. I'm a little stressed because the neighbors are really loud and my refrigerator's really loud, but I'm getting a little bit more relaxed because I get to talk to a camera, but I like pretending like it's one of you guys, so I'm good. And I get to do art. Somewhat. What kind of bear is best? When and why did you start a YouTube channel? Is there a reason you started? I started exactly 1 year ago, and I started it because I was in a club at USC, which is where I went to college, and I was editing videos for them every single week. And when I stopped, I kind of had this hole in my heart and was like, you know what? I can continue making educational videos for the general population. And so I started making videos under no specific niche, and so I didn't really get any subscribers until I started making bouldering specific content. And so now I would say that the reason I started a bouldering specific channel is because I don't think there's a lot of representation of women climbers and just climbers who aren't professional and really good on YouTube. And so that's kind of what I would like to gift YouTube today, is this channel where I'm a little amateur, a little lady amateur, if you will, and I'm just having a blast and trying to spread my message and positivity surrounding the sport. So those are all my questions. I'm sorry you couldn't see me live paint, but I just got a little sweaty, a little stressed out. Thank you to everybody who asked me questions. It was really overwhelming to see the response of people who were curious about bouldering, science, me, etc. So I think that's pretty much all I had to say today. I'm really hungry. Do you want to get coffee?
Yes.
All right, let's go. Bye.